Imagine being thrust into marriage with a complete stranger, only to uncover a secret that transforms your entire world. Stay tuned to discover how this incredible story plays out. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe you won't want to miss stories that will linger in your thoughts long after they're over. I once thought life would grant me the luxury of time to make my own choices, time to discover love naturally, time to become the woman my mother always believed I could be. But here I stand in this echoing mansion that reeks of old wood and bitter cold, and I understand now that time was never mine to claim. The woman gazing back at me from this towering mirror feels like a stranger. This cream-colored gown hugs my frame as if it were made for someone else entirely. It's far too sophisticated for someone like me, too flawless for a girl who spent her years pressing clothes in a cramped Brooklyn flat while Mama sang "You Are My Sunshine" from the kitchen top. My fingers intertwine, trembling uncontrollably. The delicate silver band on my right hand, Mama's gift on my 17th birthday, digs into my flesh. It's worn paper thin, nearly shapeless now, yet I grip it like it's the final fragment of who I used to be. "Miss Carter, we're ready for you." The housekeeper's voice drifts through the corridor, muffled yet firm. I'm frozen in place. Every instinct screams at me to flee. My eyes dart toward the door, and for one reckless moment, I imagine escaping. But where could I possibly go? Back to Mama, unconscious in that sterile hospital room, unaware that I've promised myself to a man I hardly recognize? All to preserve her life, all to shield my family from destruction. I force down the rising terror and run my palms across the silk fabric, one foot forward, then the next. I step into the dimly lit corridor, my breathing shallow and uneven. Ceremony takes place in Blackwood Estate's intimate chapel. No wedding march, no witnesses, just him waiting there. Darius Blackwood stands before the altar like a monument carved from granite, imposing, broad-shouldered, unnervingly motionless. His midnight black suit clings to him like protective armor. Those piercing dark eyes, sharp enough to slice through steel, never waver from my face as I make my way down the narrow path between empty pews. The crystal chandelier overhead casts a weak glow, throwing elongated shadows across the polished marble beneath my feet. I've never felt more insignificant. I try to concentrate on drawing breath, but the stillness weighs on my chest like a boulder I cannot shift. When I finally reach his side, I dare not lift my gaze to meet his my mouth feels like sandpaper. My pulse thunders so violently, I can barely make out the officiant's words. "We have come together today, ... The phrases dissolve into meaningless noise. Then arrives the moment, the instant my existence officially ceases to be my own. "Do you, Amelia Rose Carter, take this man ... My lips part, but silence follows. I sense Darius shift beside me, slowly. He leans down until his breath grazes my ear. "Say yes," he murmurs, his voice like crushed stone, "or your family suffers the consequences." I squeeze my eyes shut, battling the burning sensation in my throat. This isn't romance. This isn't freedom. This is pure survival. I do. I barely whisper. The officiant turns to Darius. He responds without pause, his tone steady and emotionless. "I do." No kiss follows, no celebration, no moment of happiness. Only Darius extending his arm like we're finalizing a business transaction. I rest my hand on his sleeve, my skin crawling beneath his touch. We pivot toward the hallway where a silent existence of duty and pretense awaits as we walk back toward the main house. I clutch my dress tighter, fighting to keep myself from falling apart completely. But something tears loose, a small rip in the satin lining near my waist catches my fingertips. I glance down, puzzled, and my breath stops when I notice the edge of something tucked inside the fabric. a folded piece of paper. Heart racing, I extract it and conceal it in my palm as we continue walking. Hours pass before I'm finally alone in the guest bedroom that feels nothing like sanctuary. I unfold the letter with shaking hands. Mama's handwriting jumps out at me, immediately delicate, slanted, faded around the edges like the voice that echoes in my mind each night. Forgive me, Amelia. Someday you'll understand what he did. Darius. Blackwood, he destroyed us. I stare at the words, my breath catching. The paper quivers in my grasp as the crushing weight of the unknown bears down on me. What exactly did he do? Why would Mama conceal this from me? And why did she allow me to marry him? I press the letter against my chest, curling up on the edge of the frigid, empty bed. The walls seem to shrink around me as one devastating realization takes hold. I have just wed the man who ruined my family dot, and tomorrow I'll wake up trapped in a life I never chose. I can't say how long I sit there clutching that letter, hoping it might simply vanish. Part of me wishes it would, but Mama's handwriting doesn't deceive. I tuck the letter beneath my pillow before the housekeeper knocks again. She's courteous, too courteous. She avoids eye contact as she informs me that Darius has departed for the city and won't return until late tomorrow. And just like that, I'm abandoned once more. The mansion feels even more frigid in daylight. I drift through the endless corridors, my bare feet sinking into plush carpets that smell of dust and ancient wealth. I pass libraries filled with books I'll never open, artwork I'll never comprehend. Everything here is curated, pristine, polished up. Space designed to impress, not to inhabit. I find myself drawn toward the rear of the house, to the kitchen. It's nothing like Mama's, no cracking wallpaper, no groaning floorboards. Everything here gleams, chrome, glass, marble. Cold and vacant dot, but there, tucked in the corner near the window, I spot something that doesn't belong, an old cast iron kettle. It's small, weathered, completely out of place. And somehow it makes my throat constrict. I reach for it, my fingers tracing the chipped paint. I don't know what compels me, but I fill it with water and set it on the stove. I discover a box of tea bags in the cupboard, Earl Grey, Mama's preference, and I wait. When the kettle whistles, I close my eyes. For one breathless instant, I could almost believe I'm back home, back in that cramped Brooklyn kitchen. Back when Mama's voice filled the air with gentle melodies and love felt secure and uncomplicated. I sip the tea slowly, seated by the window, watching the city skyline stretch into the distance. I wonder what Mama would say if she could see me now. Would she tell me to flee? Or would she tell me to stay and fight for something I don't yet understand? I spend the remainder of the day avoiding mirrors, avoiding the bed that feels too vast, avoiding the letter hidden beneath my pillow. I tell myself I won't cry again, and somehow I don't dot. It's well past midnight when I hear the front door open. I freeze in the hallway, breath caught in my throat. He's returned. Darius doesn't notice me initially. He's speaking quietly on his phone as he enters, his deep voice filling the empty space like it commands every inch of it. I said no press, no announcements, he states firmly. Yes, I understand what I signed. Keep it quiet. That's final. He ends the call and removes his coat, loosening his tie. His jaw clenches when he finally spots me standing there barefoot in my robe. We stare at each other for what feels like hours. Why are you awake? His voice is low, unreadable. I don't know what to say. I don't even know why I waited. I couldn't sleep, I whisper, pulling the robe tighter around me. He nods, almost like he doesn't believe me. He runs a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. Not cold, not cruel, just strained. You don't have to wait up for me, Amelia, he says, softer this time. This isn't that kind of marriage. I don't know what makes me say it, but the words. Escape before I can stop them? Did you destroy us? His body goes rigid. The atmosphere between us shifts. He takes one deliberate step toward me, then another, until he's standing close enough for me to feel the heat radiating from his skin. Who told you that? He asks, his voice dangerously quiet. I swallow hard. My mother. She wrote it in a letter. He closes his eyes for half a second, like the weight of the world just crashed onto his shoulders. Go to bed, Amelia, he murmurs. Tell me the truth, I whisper, but he doesn't. He turns and walks away, leaving me standing there with nothing but the silence he always seems to leave behind. I don't sleep again that night. I wake before dawn, needing air, needing space, needing something, anything to make sense of this. I slip outside, clutching my robe around me, and sit on the frozen steps of the garden terrace. That's when I see them, 2 envelopes neatly placed on the side table near the door. I glance around, but no one is there. I pick them up, heart pounding. The first is addressed to me, the second to the hospital billing office. My hands shake as I open the first. Your mother's treatment has been paid in full. Do not ask how. Consider it done. No signature, no explanation, but I know. I know Dr. Darius Blackwood, the man who refuses to even share a room with me, has been paying for my mother's care all along. I stare out into the icy garden, clutching the letter to my chest. I don't know who he really is. I don't know why he's doing this, but for the first time since I said I do, I'm not certain he's the villain I've made him out to be, and that terrifies me more than anything. I don't tell him I found the letter. I don't even thank him. I can't, because for every quiet kindness he shows, there's still that voice in the back of my mind, Mama's words. Like a whisper I can't silence, he destroyed us. I spend the next 2 days in silence, moving through the mansion like a guest in someone else's existence. Darius comes and goes. He never asks where I've been or what I'm thinking. He doesn't touch me. He doesn't look at me longer than necessary. And maybe that should hurt less than it does. On the 3rd morning, I wake before sunrise, pulled from sleep by something I can't explain. Restlessness, fear, longing. I don't know. I wrap myself in my coat and make my way to the kitchen, only to stop in the hallway when I hear a familiar voice. Mama. She's on the phone, her voice soft but sharp, the way it always was when she tried to hide her worry. No, I didn't tell her everything. A pause. She's better off not knowing. Another pause longer this time. Yes, I know what Darius did, but I also know why. I lean against the wall, heart pounding. She's talking to someone who knows, someone who might hold the key to all of this. I step closer, careful not to make a sound. She still wears that ring, you know, Mama continues, her voice breaking slightly. The one her father gave me before he ruined himself trying to protect us. I press a hand to my mouth, feeling the truth coiling in my chest like a storm waiting to break. Later that day, I call Mama. I don't mention the phone call. I just ask her to tell me everything. Your father, she begins, her voice trembling. He wasn't the man you thought he was, Amelia. I sink onto the floor of my room, clutching the phone like a lifeline. He was proud. Too proud. He made a deal with Darius's father years ago, borrowed money to start that little business of his. But when the business failed, he forged documents to frame Darius's father, to make it look like Blackwood Estates was the one in debt. I close my eyes, my heart sinking. Darius found out. He had every right to expose us, to destroy your father's reputation. But he didn't. Why? I whisper. Mama's sigh is long and heavy, like she's been carrying this burden for years. Because he loved you? The words hit me like a physical blow. He was just a boy back then. You were only 12. He used to come by the shop, remember? Buying flowers for his mother. He saw you, Amelia. He saw you before all of this went wrong. My throat tightens. I remember barely. A tall boy in a school uniform. Quiet, polite, always choosing yellow daisies. He kept quiet to protect you. But when your father died, the debt didn't disappear. Darius paid it off quietly. And when I got sick, dot, dot. She stops, her breath catching. He offered marriage. Not for love, not at first, but to protect you, to protect all of us. I don't know how long I sit there after the call ends. Minutes? Hours? The letter Mama hid, the words she never said, the truth I was too blind to see. I've hated him for so long. I've blamed him for everything. But all along, he's been carrying the weight I never dared to face. That night, I find myself standing. Outside his study door, my hand hovers over the doorknob. I could walk away. I could lock myself back in that cold, empty bed and pretend none of this matters. But it does. It matters more than anything. I push the door open slowly. Darius looks up from his desk, surprised to see me there. He doesn't speak. He just waits. I step inside, closing the door behind me. I walk toward him, my hands shaking. You knew my father? Lead, I whisper. You knew, and you still protected us. He leans back in his chair, his jaw tightening. What do you want me to say, Amelia? The truth, I breathe. Please, for the first time. I see something flicker in his eyes, not coldness, not distance, but pain. I did it for you, he says, barely more than a whisper. I've been doing this for you since the day I watched your father fall apart and knew you would be the one to pay for it. My throat burns. Tears blur my vision. I shake my head, unable to breathe. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have hated me anyway, he says, his voice rough, and maybe I deserved it. I move closer, not sure if I'm walking or falling. I reach out, my fingers brushing his hand. It's the first time I've touched him without fear. The first time I've wanted to. I don't hate you, I whisper. I just die. I don't know how to stop feeling like I should. He turns his hand, curling his fingers around mine tight, like he's afraid I'll disappear. Let me show you how, he murmurs, and for the first time, I think I might let him try. I wish I could tell you that everything changed after that night. In his study, that I woke up the next morning knowing exactly how to forgive him, how to trust him, how to love him. But life doesn't work like that. Not real life. What I felt was messy, something between understanding and fear, between longing and resentment, like standing in the doorway of a warm room, not knowing if I was allowed to step inside. I spent the next week watching Darius, the way you watch the sky before a storm, bracing for something you can't predict. But nothing ever came. He didn't push me to talk. He didn't pull me closer. He just let me be. And in that silence, something inside me started to shift. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because the air smelled like snow again, even though the ground had been dry for days. I had gone to the kitchen, craving the quiet comfort of that old kettle, when I overheard two members of Darius' staff whispering in the hallway. He's calling it off, one of them murmured. The entire project, Blackwood Heights, millions down the drain. You're kidding, the other replied, low and sharp. He's been planning that development for 3 years. Said something about the Carter family shop being in the way. That little block in Brooklyn. Guess he's letting it go. I pressed my back to the wall, my breath catching. Blackwood Heights. Even I had heard of it, a massive high-rise complex planned right in the middle of the old neighborhood where I grew up, where Mama still lived. The block where our tiny flower shop used to stand before it closed down years ago, and now he was letting it go. For me, I couldn't stop thinking about it all night. It wrapped itself around me tighter than any blanket ever could. He had spent years building that project, and with a single decision, he had chosen to walk away. No one knew. No one would ever praise him for it. There would be no headlines, no applause, only loss and silence. The next evening, I found him sitting in the library, staring out the window at the city lights. I stood in the doorway, watching him for what felt like forever. Something about the way his shoulders slumped, the way his hands hung heavy in his lap, it cracked something open in me I didn't even know I had left. Walked in quietly and sat down across from him. For a long while, neither of us spoke. Then, without thinking, I stood, walked to the small tea tray in the corner, and poured 2 cups. I brought one to him, setting it on the table between us. "It's cold tonight," I whispered. He didn't look at me right away. He just reached for the cup, his fingers brushing mine. And for the first time since we married, he smiled. Not a full smile, not even close, but a soft, fleeting curve of his lips, like he didn't remember how to do it properly. "I heard what you did," I said softly, "about the project." His smile faded. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," I whispered. Leaned back, running a hand over his face like the weight of it all was too much. "I built that deal to prove I could survive what your father did to me," he confessed, his voice low. "I told myself that if I could build something bigger, stronger, I'd finally feel like I'd won. But all I ever felt was ... He stopped, searching for words that never seemed to come. "I'm tired of building walls I don't even want to live behind." He finally whispered ... I sat down beside him, curling my hands around my teacup for warmth. Neither of us spoke for a while. The city stretched out beyond the window, glittering and endless. I thought about my mother's voice, about the nights she used to sit with me in that old kitchen, wrapping her hands around a chipped mug the way I was doing now. "I used to think love had to be loud to be real," I whispered, almost to myself. "That it had to look like fairy tales, big gestures, big words." He turned toward me, watching me carefully. "But Mama used to say real love is quiet. It's in the things no one else sees." I set my tea down, folding my hands in my lap. "You gave up everything for people who might never know, and you did it anyway." I looked up, meeting his eyes fully for the first time in days. "That feels a lot like love to me." His breath caught, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might say something, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his forehead in his hands like the weight of my words was too much to carry. "You deserve more than this, Amelia," he whispered. "More than me." I reached out before I could stop myself, placing my hand over his. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "Maybe," I whispered, "but for the first time, I don't want to run anymore." He lifted his head slowly, his eyes searching mine raw and unguarded. "Why?" he breathed. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling. "Because I think I'm starting to see the man you've been hiding all along." Neither of us moved after that. We just sat there side by side, sharing the kind of silence that didn't feel empty anymore, the kind of silence that felt safe, real, ours. We never spoke of that night again, but somehow everything felt different after. I stopped feeling like a stranger in this house, stopped tiptoeing through the halls like I was trespassing in someone else's life. I even started leaving my door open at night just a crack, but still open. Darius never crossed the threshold, but I knew he noticed. And strangely, that felt like enough for now. The days blurred together. Small things started to shift in ways only I could see: fresh flowers on the table every morning, a new box of Mama's favorite tea in the cabinet, a soft knock on my door each night just before he turned in. Not words, not grand gestures, just presence. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we were finding our way towards something real. Until she came. It was later than usual. I had just finished folding the last of the clean sheets when I heard the knock. Not at my door, at the front of the house. I paused at the top of the stairs, clutching the edge of the banister, listening. Darius answered, his voice low and tense. You shouldn't be here. A woman's voice replied, light and sharp, laced with the kind of confidence I'd never learned how to fake. Oh, I think I should. I crept down the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. I stopped when I reached the bottom, peeking around the corner just far enough to see her dot tall, striking, dressed in black like she owned the night itself. How sweet, she purred, stepping closer to him. You really married the little critter girl, after all? I held my breath. What do you want, Elise? Darius spit out, his jaw clenched. She laughed softly, trailing a finger along the edge of his jacket. Just here to offer my congratulations, she murmured, her eyes flashing. After all, it's not every day a man finally takes revenge on the family that ruined him. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Her words hit me like ice water down my spine. No, not again. Not after everything we'd started to build. Get out, Darius growled, his voice darker than I'd ever heard it. Elise leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper I almost didn't hear. She doesn't know, does she? A cruel smile curved her lips. Poor little thing. She actually thinks you married her to save her. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I said, get out. Darius snapped, grabbing her arm. Elise yanked free, laughing. Coldly, be careful, Darius. You're starting to look like you actually care. She turned on her heel, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she walked toward the door. And that's when she saw me. She stopped, tilting her head slightly, her smile turning almost pitying. Ah, she whispered. There you are, little bird. Darius turned sharply, his eyes finding mine. Amelia, but I didn't wait to hear the rest. I turned and ran, the sound of my own heartbeat drowning everything else out. I don't remember getting back to my room. I just remember standing there, shaking, staring at the silver ring on my finger like it was burning my skin. Was it all a lie? Had he been playing me from the start some twisted way to even the score? The tears came fast and hard, ripping through me like a storm. I couldn't stop. I grabbed the letter Mama had written, the one that started all of this, and shoved it into my pocket. I couldn't stay here. Not another second. I pulled on my coat with trembling hands, grabbed my boots, and slipped out the back door without looking back. The cold hit me like a slap, stealing the breath from my lungs. I didn't care. I just kept walking through the garden, down the long drive, into the dark streets beyond. I don't know how long I walked. The snow started to fall again, soft and steady, covering the city like a hush no one dared break. By the time I reached Brooklyn, my fingers were numb, my boots soaked through, my breath visible in the freezing air. But I didn't stop. I climbed the worn steps to Mama's apartment, my throat tight, my vision blurry. I raised my hand to knock, but the door opened before I could doubt Mama stood there, wrapped in her old shawl, looking at me like she'd been waiting all night. Come inside, baby, she whispered. Holding the door open wider. I collapsed into her arms, breaking apart all over again. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I wasn't running toward safety. I was running away from the only thing I might have ever wanted. I didn't know if I'd ever be brave enough to go back. I slept in my childhood bed that night, curled under the old patchwork quilt Mama had sewn when I was 12. The mattress sagged in the middle like it always had. The walls smelled like chamomile and wood polish. And for the first time in weeks, I should have felt safe, but I didn't. Not really. Because I knew I had left something unfinished back at the mansion. Or maybe someone. Mama didn't ask questions the next morning. She just made tea and sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around her favorite chipped mug, the one with the fading sunflower painted on the side. He came here once, you know, she said quietly after a long silence. I looked up, startled. When? 2 years ago, she whispered, her eyes distant, like she was pulling the memory from somewhere she'd hidden it after your father died. I leaned back, clutching the edge of the table. He offered to pay off the debts to take care of me, of you. My throat tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd never say yes, she said softly. I knew you'd hate him for it, and I wasn't ready to tell you the truth about your father. She paused, turning the mug in her hands. I told him to stay away, to let you live your life without this hanging over you. She looked up, her eyes glistening. But he never really left, did he? I pushed back from the table, standing too fast, my chair scraping against the floor. He used me, Mama, I choked out. I heard it with my own ears. That woman, she said, I was just part of his revenge. Mama stood slowly, crossing the small kitchen, to place her hands on my face. And you believed her? I flinched. I don't know what to believe anymore. She held my face tighter, forcing me to look into her tired, knowing eyes. Then you ask him, you face him. You don't run from the truth. Amelia, not if you ever want to live with yourself. Her words hit harder than I expected, because deep down I knew she was right. I had spent my whole life running from loss, from fear, from anything that felt bigger than I could hold. And maybe it was time to stop. That night, after Mama went to bed, I stood by the window, staring out at the street below. The snow had started again, heavier this time. Soft flakes drifted past the streetlight, swirling like little ghosts in the dark. I wrapped my arms around myself, wondering if Darius even noticed I was gone, wondering if he even cared. I almost missed it, the shadow standing on the sidewalk across the street. Tall still, UNMOVING, my breath caught in my throat. I pressed my hand to the glass, leaning closer. It was him. I bolted for the door, throwing on my coat and rushing down the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might collapse before I reached him. When I stepped onto the sidewalk, the snow crunched softly beneath my boots. He didn't move. What are you doing here? I whispered, my voice catching in my throat. He turned slowly, the snow catching in his dark hair, melting on the sharp edges of his jaw. Waiting, he rasped. I swallowed hard, my breath fogging in the freezing air. For what? His eyes locked on mine so raw and unguarded it made my knees shake. For you to stop running. I took a shaky step forward. Why? He exhaled slowly, his breath swirling between us like a fragile thread. Because I can't live without you, Amelia. The words hit me like a fist to the chest, so simple, so unpolished, so painfully real. You heard Elise, I whispered, my voice trembling. She said you married me to take revenge on my family. His jaw clenched, snowflakes sticking to his lashes. I did, he admitted, his voice breaking, at first. I told myself that's what this was, that I could finally settle the score. He took a step closer, snow crunching softly beneath his shoes. But I was wrong. I've been wrong since the day I saw you in that dress, standing in front of me like you were already breaking. I swallowed hard, my vision blurring with tears. I don't know how to fix this, I whispered. He shook his head slowly. I don't want to fix it, Amelia. I just want to start over if you'll let me. I stood there shaking, torn between the part of me that still wanted to run and the part of me that had already run too far. I thought of Mama's voice, of the way Darius had waited in silence, not in anger, not in power, but in surrender. And I knew. I took another step, closing the distance between us. I reached for his hand slowly, like it might break if I wasn't careful. He let out a breath I didn't realize he'd been holding, curling his fingers around mine, holding on like he never wanted to let go. Come inside, I whispered. Only if you ask me to stay, he breathed. I closed my eyes, pressing my forehead to his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath my palms. Stay. He wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close, burying his face in my hair like he couldn't quite believe I was real Dot in there. Under the falling snow, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other, Dot. We didn't say much on the walk back to the apartment. We didn't have to. His hand stayed wrapped around mine the entire way, not tight, not desperate, just steady. Like he finally understood I wouldn't run again. And maybe I understood it too. Dot Mama was waiting by the door when we stepped inside. Her expression softened. The second she saw him, no accusations, no questions, just quiet, knowing acceptance. "You'll stay for tea?" She asked him gently, like it was the simplest thing in the world. He nodded, clearing his throat like it was the first breath he'd taken all night. Dot. We sat at the old kitchen table, the three of us, like we had done it 100 times before, even though it had never happened. Not like this. Dot Mama moved around the kitchen slowly, filling the kettle, pulling down the chipped mugs, the same ones I had grown up watching her use when the world felt too big for us to hold. "Amelia used to sit right there," she said softly, nodding toward the chair I was in, feet swinging because they couldn't reach the floor. I let out a breathless laugh, pressing my hand to my chest. "She used to hum that silly song over and over," Mama continued. "What was it, baby?" I smiled through the lump in my throat. "You are my sunshine," I whispered. Darius leaned back in his chair, his hands resting on the table, open and empty. "I remember," he said quietly. "You were always singing it when I came by the shop." Mama smiled sadly, setting the mugs down in front of us. She never really stopped. We drank our tea in silence, the steam curling between us like something fragile and unfinished. When Mama stood to head toward her room, she paused beside Darius, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, you know," she said softly. Looked up at her, startled. "Waiting for her," she added. "Letting her choose." He swallowed hard, nodding like the words weighed more than he knew how to carry. Mama turned to me, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Take care of each other," she whispered, and just like that, she was gone, leaving us alone again. I turned back to him.